Would you like to learn about identity and access management? If so, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Michael Gibbs and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects, and we're an organization dedicated towards building high-performance cloud computing and networking careers. I've been working in tech now for over 25 years, and I've been coaching or mentoring others to get their first tech job or get promoted in tech for 2 decades now, and it's my favorite thing in the world. Today, we're going to talk about identity and access management, otherwise known as IAM, also named as Authentication, Authorization, Accounting, also known as AAA. And identity and access management is really the last line of defense to protect an organization. And we're going to talk about these concepts so you really understand them and the strengths and the weaknesses of every approach we're going to use, but we want you to at least understand why it's the last line of defense. The reason we want to make this point of clarification is many people think of IAM as primary security. It is not. It's the last line of defense. I want you to think of security as a layered approach to protect things. So for example, let's say you were going to secure a castle. The walls of the castle would be these big, tall walls around the castle. That's called a firewall. And that's how we keep unwanted traffic out of our organizations. And then typically speaking, behind the firewall, we've got something called an intrusion detection, intrusion prevention. See, when you have a castle, you've got this really high wall, and if somebody climbs the wall, they fall into a moat, and it's filled with like sharks and alligators, and there's typically knights behind the moat. That's your intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system. And then we use things like access control lists and host-based firewalls to keep traffic out of our stuff. But what happens when the user is on our systems? That's what IAM does. So let's say IAM, for example, is what happens when someone knocks on the front door of your house. See, if your house was that castle, they couldn't knock on the front door because there'd be the firewall or the big giant wall, and they couldn't get, and if they got past the firewall, they'd be blocked by the IDS, those sharks, those alligators, those knights. And of course, we'd have other filters like accessless firewalls. But if somebody's knocking on your front door, they've already bypassed it. So this is where IAM comes in. It's that last line of defense. So we're going to talk about all of this works. Now, when we're talking about IAM, we're really talking about the authentication, authorization, and accounting. And people also refer to IAM, or identity and access management, as basically identity governance and administration. Now, that's more of an accounting term, and we'll talk about the authentication, authorization, and accounting. Just realize there's a lot of terms that are all bundled into this identity and access management framework. So let's talk about authentication. What is authentication? It is identification of the user. Realistically speaking, it means making sure the user is who they claim to be. That's it. Now, we can do this via various methods, as simple as something like a username and password. That's something you know. And we can use a combination of authentication methods to really determine that you are you. We can basically use something you have, like a device, something you are, like biometrics, and some place where you're at, even geolocation. So we're going to talk about some of the ways we can do this. The simplest and easiest thing to do is basically a password, something you know. Its strength is it's super simple. You just write down a password in your mind, you remember the password in your mind, and then basically you enter it into the systems and you log in. Now, that's great until your password's compromised. Then this falls apart. So this is not really a robust security environment. So the next movement up the chain for better authentication, but remember, more complexity, is something you have and something you know. So for example, you've got a username and password and a multi-factor authentication. So maybe you enter your username and password and you get a text message and you have to enter a code. Maybe you're using an RSA secure ID kind of thing. Maybe you've got a Google Authenticator app on your phone that's basically coming up with one-time passwords that are pre-synchronized to be in existence, as well as your username and password. So this is much stronger. So that's its strength, it's strong. Now the weakness is it gets complex. Got to train your users on making sure they understand how these multi-factor authentications work or things like that. So it's a little more complex, but not overly complex, and it enhances security very much, and we're going to see this for the most part moving everywhere. As you can see, banks are starting to migrate this, your accounts online are starting to use this. Passwords are just not good enough in today's world. No. The next movement up is something you have and something you are. Think about your passwords and biometrics. This is much stronger because only you have your eye or only you have your finger. So it's going to be much harder to fake this. Now, of course, you can fake it, but it's going to be much, much, much harder to fake it. So this is the strongest of the approaches, but here's the weakness. There's a lot of complexity, and if you've ever worked with biometric devices before, you know they're far from perfect and they don't work all the time. So, great, 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 but it's got its weaknesses. So since authentication is about who you are, let's talk about the next component, which is authorization. What can you do? So authorization is basically what are you allowed to do on the systems after someone knows who you are. So basically the way this typically works is access is typically grouped into roles based upon organizational functions or loosely defined job roles, for example, administrators, finance, etc., etc., etc. And what happens is authorization is going to outline what users can do after they've been authenticated. I mean, first you need to know who the user is before you give them privileges. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So authentication, and then you authorize the user. Now we can get pretty good and robust here too. We can basically have you as part of a group that has certain privileges to do certain things, but you might need to escalate your privileges. So think of the Linux Unix system, for example. Let's say you're logged in as your user, and then you want to install something or modify the kernel, and you have to do a super user or a sudo to increase your privileges. Well, we can do that same thing with regards to authorization. We can have something and then have a user that needs to escalate the privileges to do some maintenance, and we can add multi-factor authentication and do this for a temporary escalation. So we've got a lot of play that we can do with authorization. So let's talk about the strengths of using authorization to limit traffic. It helps a lot. It enforces segregation of duties by separating job roles based upon functions. It groups users with similar access. You basically give the user the access to whatever the minimum thing is necessary to do their job and no more. Information at some point can hurt you, so give the limited amount of information, the least amount necessary for people to do their jobs. Just the right access, no more. And the way this is going to work by default is basically the way you set your systems up is after someone's authenticated, if you didn't give them any privileges, they should have none. So good, strong, robust systems find out who you are, make sure you're who you claim to be, and then after that, they determine what you're allowed to do. So these are the strengths that are associated with authorization. Now, authorization can get fairly complex, and we can create some problems. So some weaknesses of the approach are you can accidentally create users that have access to too much, or lock a user's permissions down so much that they can't access what you need, and it's a constant call to tech support for help. So other problems with this approach is, let's say you're in one department in an organization, you move to another. Maybe you were in development and you needed a lot of privileges, and now you're in leadership and don't. People often forget to change the access to people as they change job roles. So hackers typically target the administrator accounts or the privileged access accounts because that's where they can do the most damage. So, lock these systems down as much as possible. Now, the last component of IAM or AAA is accounting. So you'll recall first we authenticated you to make sure who you were, and then we authorize you to determine what you have access to. Now we got to do accounting or keep track of it. So accounting basically ensures that after users have gained access, that their actions and activities are tracked. So this is commonly known as audit or account recertification. Basically what happens is this: users act something, and then we can log and check the logs to make sure they didn't access more than they needed to. So accounting audits are used to make sure that companies meet regulatory requirements, especially for organizations such as healthcare and financial services, but this exists in a wide variety of environments, so this accounting component is really critical. So what are the strengths of using accounting in your IAM approach? Well, it identifies all types of access, including unused access. So this is really great stuff. Strengths include tracking and remediating of excessive or unauthorized access, and realistically speaking, it could be set up where there's approval required for users that need access. Now, there's some weaknesses to this approach too. Let's say, for example, in the accounting world, you're looking at things, is it good, is it good, is it good, and you just rubber stamp all day long. And I've seen this, where basically everybody just approves everything, and they're like, okay, users are good. Now, you can have other people that are not really informed in what they're approving can approve things that are also wrong. So when you're dealing with accounting environments for your cloud, or a cloud accounting for any type of authentication, authorization accounting, or identity and access management, you can put yourself in a position if the users don't know what they're doing. So identity and access management is the last line of defense to protect an organization's systems. Basically, we authenticate the user, determine who they are, then we authorize them to give them access to what they need to be, and then we keep track of it. So let's pretend you are in a house. Let's say all the security systems, like the castle we talked about before, people bypass the firewall, which is the wall around the castle. They bypass the IDS, IPS systems, which are basically the moat around the castle. And let's say we've got some packet filters like access lists and security groups. And now somebody's finally knocking on that door of the server. I'm here. So here's what happens. When somebody knocks on the door of your house, and they knock on the door, you say, "Oh, Jeffrey, welcome in." And if you really like Jeffrey, you let Jeffrey access all parts of your house. But if you don't trust Jeffrey, you can say, "Jeffrey, you may sit here and the bathroom's here and I'll come and get you when I'm ready." Same thing for identity and access management. People make these things complicated, but they're really simple in general. So now you know what is identity and access management, also known as AAA, and the benefits it can give an organization. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. We hope we can do anything we can to help build your cloud computing career. Whether you want to be a cloud architect, whether you want to be a cloud engineer or a network architect, we want to give you all the skills to build the best technology career. This is Michael Gibbs from Go Cloud Architects, and I look forward to seeing you in another video very soon. Have a great day. It was so nice having you join us for this video today. Let me tell you about some free services we do for the cloud community. Twice per week, we have a free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, where we tell you all the things you need to do and know to get your first cloud architect job. In addition to that, once per week, we actually have a free question and answer session live on YouTube, where you can come and ask us any questions you want about building your career related to cloud computing or networking, and we'll answer them in real time for you because we want to get you to your goals. Several more times per week, we have guests from industry experts that I've known for decades that are movers and shakers that have changed the world, that can give you information so you can build the best career. I invite them periodically. They are on my show. If there's a chance to do some free training on our channel, we'll do it live because we want you all to have the best skills for the best career. So please subscribe and hit the bell. I look forward to seeing you, and I look forward to assisting you in your technology career. Thank you so much. This is Michael Gibbs from Go Cloud Architects.